And joining him, the son of Bob Crosby, the very talented Chris Crosby. And now, here he is, the man of the half hour, Skip E Lowe.
John Phillip Law. He's saying one of the most versatile actors in our films today. And you really are. Barbarella, I mean, cowboys, all those. I mean, you spent a lot of time in Europe. Tell me, why?
Well, let's take last year, for example.
Yeah.
I played Johann Strauss's manager. Mm-hmm. I played in a film in Vienna. Then I played a kind of a JR type, a steel magnate from Texas, in a pilot for a European TV film. Then a psychiatrist with Claudine Auger. Another film with Margot Hemingway, in which I played the diplomat father of a young psychic girl. Then a couple of Rambo Bambos, one science fiction film.
Is John Phillip Law having fun right now?
Yeah, John Phillip Law has fun when he's working.
Is he? Working? You're always working, though. Every time I called you, you're in Europe or in Russia or Yugoslavia, constantly working.
Yeah.
Why do you keep yourself so busy? You want that? You want it that way or what? I mean, tell me.
That's a funny question to ask an actor.
There are a lot of actors who don't want to.
Well, there's 95% of the union isn't working at one time. I consider myself lucky to be working, number one, and to be doing, leading roles and traveling the world. And it's
John Phillip Law grew up.
I for sure think I have the best job in the world.
You certainly do. John Phillip Law grew up here in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood High.
My mother went to Hollywood High before I did.
Your mother?
And she toured the country with Walter Hamden doing Shakespeare. And yeah, so I come from a bit of a showbiz family.
Shakespeare. You studied Shakespeare too?
Well, yes, back in drama school. And I did a Jacobean play that Elia Kazan directed at Lincoln Center called The Changeling many years ago.
Right. John Phillip Law. First movie. What was it?
Oh, golly. Well, the first one is an adult actor, because as a kid I worked as an extra once in a while, and then I took off and studied engineering and came back to acting in my early 20s.
Right.
But the first one as an adult was High Infidelity. Alta Infidelità. It was an Italian film with Nino Manfredi, and it was a film with 4 episodes. You remember those old episodic films?
Right. Italians love John Phillip Law.
Well, I get along there. I've done a lot of films there.
You parli italiano?
Sì, ma certo. Anche lei.
Sì, you like
Va bene.
Rome is just beautiful. It is.
Come mia seconda città, Roma.
Hollywood High, then film. Barbarella. When did that come? That was a great film.
Well, Barbarella was shot in Italy. It was a Paramount picture, but it was shot at what's now Empire Studios. It was De Laurentiis Studios at that time.
My favorite movie, The Sergeant. Rod Steiger.
That was shot in Paris. That was in
Paris?
Yeah, a little town outside of Paris called Dreux, just north of Paris. And boy, it was cold. And I remember one night when it was shot during Christmas time, and there was one night with Steiger shooting a scene by a river where literally my lips wouldn't move. You know, we were all bundled. Everything else was bundled up, but it was about, I don't know, 6 degrees or something like that. Everything frozen over.
Married?
Divorced.
Divorced. Children?
Happy father of a 13-year-old.
House. Living in Hollywood and the hills. Same house, born, lived all your life.
Well,
it's a beautiful home.
It's been home all of my life. I've lived in New York, Italy, Hawaii.
But the house you have now, it is in the hills. It's beautiful, and you've been there, or you grew up there.
Yeah. My uncle was the architect on the place, and my dad built it, and a lot of the stonework around there my dad did. He was a deputy sheriff who, I think he was a closet mason. So,
John Phillip Law have seen Hollywood. Oh, God. Not only you have seen Hollywood, next to you is Chris Crosby, buddies of yours, right? Hello, Chris.
For years.
Hey, Chris Crosby. For years. How many years? Since you were a kid?
20 years. About 20 years.
20?
It seemed like 20 years.
You guys, I mean, growing up here in Chris Crosby.
We have to protect each other. We're here in town alone, you know.
Bob Crosby's son. Was it tough? Is it tough? Or was it? Or is it? Or I don't know.
I think it was great. I'd do it all.
Bing Crosby's nephew, you know.
Are you kidding? It was great.
Doors open more easier?
Well, they open easier, but of course you gotta be able to walk through them. You know?
And produce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sing.
Yeah.
With your father in the band?
I've sang with my father. I've sang with my own rock and roll band, with my own country band.
And you had a record too?
Yes, I've written a rock opera, and they're presently putting that together to do in England. There's interest also in Japan for it.
What's that about? The rock
It's
opera?
a Salvation mystic band of the 23rd century. It's a love, ecology story, peace. It all takes place in the 23rd century. It's a lot of metaphysics, a lot of magic, illusions, a lot of dance. It's almost like a giant rock concert, if you could imagine.
I see.
I think you'd like it.
Chris, Gary wrote a book about your uncle. Accurate or not? Tell me.
Well,
I mean,
accurate, I think so, from Gary's point of view.
from his point.
Obviously, the book is about the relationship between Gary and Bing.
Yes.
I don't think that's the whole story. I'm in the process of doing a story because Bing was my godfather and my uncle.
Yes.
And I'm in the process of doing a video story, a movie, book, all about my godfather and uncle called My Uncle Bing. And in which we go around to all of his friends. My father, Bob Hope, Phil Harris. We talk to, we've already got 22 of the most fantastic interviews in the can. It's unbelievable because Bing was really an enigma. I don't even think my father felt that he really was close enough or knew him. And everybody who did know him has a wonderful story to tell about him, but they all have a different idea about who Bing Crosby really was. I mean, there were some wonderful moments. One of the things my father tells, oh, there's so many stories, but when he was just starting out in show business, and he just formed his band, and he was opening this club in Tybee Beach, Georgia. And he just finished the rehearsal, and the owner of the club came up to him and he says, "Who's the leader of this band?" And my father said, "I am." And he says, "Well, lead it to hell out of here, it stinks." Well, my father was in a terrible jam at that point because he had no money and he had the band, and it was another 2 or 3 weeks before the next job. So he called his big star brother Bing in Hollywood to ask for a loan. And he said, "Bing, you got to help me out. Can you send me $5,000? It'll be a couple of weeks before we get to the next job. Otherwise, how am I going to keep the band together and everything?" Bing says, "I can't help you." He hangs up the phone. And right after he hung up the phone, he picked up the phone again and he called his publisher in New York, Bregman, Vaco, and Kahn.
Right.
And he said, "Listen, my brother Bob is down in Tybee Beach, Georgia. And he says, I want you to send him a check for $5,000. And the publisher says, "Who the hell is Bob?" He says, "Doesn't matter." He says, "I'm writing you a check right now for $5,000. I want you to call him up, tell him you want to publish his music, but I don't want him to know it came from me." Now it's 15 years later, and my father's having lunch in New York with one of the guys in the publishing company, and they're talking about Bing, and the guy says, "Wait a minute." He said, "Do you know where the money really came from when we signed you up?"
Yes.
But that tells you a lot about this man, Bing Crosby, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
And the rest of the stories are just incredible.
John, did
just
you ever meet
incredible.
Bing Crosby?
No,
You have-
never did.
No?
Never did.
I met him a couple of times at Paramount.
My younger brother worked on Going My Way.
Oh.
So
Your younger brother, name?
yeah, Tom.
Tom.
Yeah,
I
he turned out to be the engineer. He lives in
Oh.
Manhattan now, and I'm
Oh.
out here. But I remember my mother taking him off the set to that because as a kid we worked on a lot of those, the old black and white films.
Your mother was a wardrobe lady, wasn't she? At the
No, she
beginning?
was an actress.
Actress?
Yeah,
Wardrobe?
no, never wardrobe. She went to the
Correct
American
that.
Academy of Dramatic Art, and then
see.
she toured. She was in Bittersweet and a lot of light operas and things. Then she toured with this fellow I mentioned, Walter Hamden, during the 30s. They brought
Right.
Shakespeare back and forth across the country, and a lot of other things. But she was a comedienne, primarily.
Comedienne.
Yeah, yeah.
How about John Phillip Law? Like comedy? You never do. You do.
The Russians are coming. Didn't you like The Russians Are Coming? That was a comedy.
I'm talking
I
about
liked
recent. That was a great film.
Well, I did a
Great
film with
movie.
Claudia Cardinale in Italy where I played an Italian house painter that refused to go to bed with his girlfriend until marriage, which was a nice twist. That's something that really have the Italians falling down in the aisles.
She is beautiful. She is really beautiful, Claudia. Oh,
Yeah,
just
and really a nice girl.
Nice to work
what
with.
a sweetheart, yeah.
Who
I
are
did
some
a
of your
couple-
favorite ladies working with John?
Oh, golly, there's just so many. You get me in trouble to talk about it. I've always had a lot of respect for Jane Fonda. I've done 2 films with her. And
Barbarella
she's such a professional. The other was Hurry Sundown.
Hurry Sundown.
In which Faye Dunaway played my wife. Right. Now, Faye and I loved working with Faye because we had a theater background together from Lincoln Center in New York together. Right. So when we came together and were cast as husband and wife, it made life very easy for us. We knew all the right moves, and the filming went very well.
You know, I asked Christina Crawford. She didn't want it Faye Dunaway for Mommy Dearest. She wanted someone else.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting. She wanted Annie Bancroft. That's strange, and Faye did a marvelous job in that. She's a very...
she did a great job.
She's a fabulous actress. Tell me, you brought the trailer. I love to see the clip of this thing.
Great, yeah. Well, I think what you were talking about earlier about Gary in the book,
right.
I think what we're going to see now is a shot. It'll be Phil Harris, and then a little clip from my father, Bob Crosby, and then Bob Hope. And Phil is explaining at this part of the interview, and this is just a teaser. I mean, God, have I got a lot of material. It's what to throw out, not what to keep.
Yes.
Phil is explaining about Gary in the book at this point. I think you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah. Can we show the clip? Thank you.
With his fame was the 4 boys, because he never had time to take care of them. He loved them, but that was right at his height, so the only thing that he could do, he had the ranch in Elko, so we used to take the boys up there and put them on buck rakes and everything, and they used to, gee whiz, you know, I mean, young kids growing up, and they wanted to at least have a vacation, but he didn't have time to take care of them. Their mother was gone, and you know, I mean, so that's like when Gary wrote the book. Gary's only talking about just he and his dad. He's not talking about anybody else. And he was rough. He was a strict father, but he had to be because he was never around them. You know, that was the height of his career.
Anyone in the family got divorced, that's when he always allowed them to come in the house and everything and things like that, but it made him very angry. He thought he and Dixie were solid, and he and Kathy were married, but not quite that solid.
I've never told anybody this before. The only thing I want to tell you is when Dixie died, and I went to church over there in Beverly Hills, when right after the thing, Bing threw himself into my arms, which was something else, you know, because he was cool, and he'd have fun with you and laugh with you, but I never saw that kind of tenderness in a guy and that kind of emotion with a fella. And it shocked me a little, but I thought it was just sensational that he felt that way.
God, Bob Hope.
I'll tell you, it was incredible. You know, when I was doing the interview with him, and I know everybody's always seen Bob Hope.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I'd seen this kind of intensity in his eyes. Because, you know, when family goes to somebody and says, well, what's the truth about my relative or something, you get a kind of bonding thing that happens, you know. Yes. And Bob Hope and Bing, they were so close. In fact, I read in an article one time where Bob Hope did an interview and said it was talking about if you could bring any one of your buddies or anybody back who had passed away, who would it be? He said, I'd like to have Bing back again. And,
I understand Bob Hope walks around Beverly Hills late at night sometimes, late at night with his golf club, and he talks to his friend, Bing Crosby, around Beverly Hills, you know. Just walks around. I understand that. That's from a very private person was telling me that. And he misses his friend. He really misses his friend.
Well, don't we all talk to the people we love in one way or another?
Yes. Yeah. Growing up here in Bel Air, Beverly Hills, wherever.
All of those.
I mean, how was it? I mean,
oh, it was
Chris,
rough. It was rough.
Catholic school. Come on, Chris. No, you didn't know any other way.
I had to fight my way down, you know.
Yeah.
No, it was great. I've had a great life.
Catholic school.
I went to Catholic schools, Jesuit schools after that. I even went to Gonzaga University for a semester.
Did you ever, even then, when you were a child, thought you wanted to be an actor or a singer or? No, or an architect?
Oh, I think as I got into high school and I'd be dancing with a girl and I'd maybe sing along with the song and she'd get a little closer, you know, I knew there was something there that I should be doing more than pre-med, you know, and bounced me right out of pre-med school eventually. You know, I got into it. I had one moment, my first experience on stage. Let me give you an example of what it's like to start at the top.
As Chris Crosby, yes, I like to know.
I knew nothing about singing. And my father came to me and said, listen, a couple of the guys in the Modern Airs, which was on his show at the time, he says, they've written these songs and they want you to do it. And I said, okay, fine. You know, we went in and made these records. And my first job was with Dick Clark at the Hollywood Bowl in front of 17,000 screaming kids. Now, I'd never been on a stage before in my life. This is the first job. It's a true story. I mean, it's really true. The first song was a ballad, and the second song was an up-tempo song. And it had all kinds of stars on the show. What I was doing there, I have no idea. Well, the rehearsal went okay.
Yeah.
But as showtime rolled around, you know, you start to get the butterflies, and boy, I was getting nervous, you know. And boy, about 10 minutes before showtime, you know, they came and knocked on the door and said, Crosby, you're next. I said, wait a minute. Let's talk about it. I can't do this, you know. I said, I can't do this. I was just, you know, like this, you know. And I could hear the kids screaming, and you could look out there, but you couldn't see anything from the Hollywood Bowl, you know. They said, well, you're on next. I said, I can't go on. They said, well, you got to talk to Dick then. I said, okay, fine, let me talk to Dick. I said, but I'm not going on. They said, go over here and stand right here next to this door.
Yes.
And we'll go and get Dick. And while I wasn't looking, somebody swung open the door, shoved me through, slammed it shut behind me, and there's no handle on the other side.
So you were stuck.
And I'm on the inside of the Hollywood Bowl with the band playing and the kids screaming like this up against the wall, you know, terrified.
Great.
And the more spasms I'd get into, the more the kids would scream. It was great. They were screaming so much you couldn't hear what anybody was singing or doing anyway. I was so blown away. I sang the up-tempo song first to the ballad, to a whole different song I sang, and finished way ahead of the band. And then I went right into the rock number and started singing the ballad, and the band finished before me. Well, by that time I was moving like Jerry Lewis on the stage, and the more spasm I'd get, you know, the more they'd scream. Well, I walked off the stage and thought I was fantastic. Everybody was going, that was great.
That's great.
I didn't want to, you know, challenge them on any of that. Until the article in Time magazine came out, and all it said was, and the inane Chris Crosby. And I said, geez, that's interesting. What does that mean? And I looked it up in the dictionary, and I'll never forget. Inane means stupid or foolhardy, and that's what I was, and I went back to pre-med school. But I'd been bitten by the bug by that time, and I'm sure as every performer knows, that thrill of being in front of an audience and being able to connect or communicate in any way, shape, or form, even if you're lame, it's a hook. It's the greatest hook in the world.
But you brought your guitar. John, why don't we let him hear? I'd love to hear you sing.
Yeah, great.
Live.
Great.
Live, I understand. Let's. John, you sing too. I'd love to hear you sing.
Well, I sing in the shower,
Oh,
and
come on.
bathroom. Chris and I get a little roaring.
Maybe you two
sing
get
once
a.
in a while.
Well, let's hear John's Chris sing, or you want to sing together first?
It's whatever
Why don't you
you'd
do it
like.
together, and then you do a nice ballad?
Together?
Do one together.
What do you want to do?
Let's go ahead.
What do you want
Let's
to do?
get together.
Let's
You wanna do
together,
Pick Me
not
Up?
the tape yet.
You were mine.
Wait a minute. Let me start the music first.
Okay.
Not the tape yet.
You were mine just for a while, but now you're putting on the style, and you never once look back at your home across the track. You're the gossip of the town, but my heart can still be found where you tossed it on the ground. Pick me up on your way down. That's enough of that stuff.
No.
Sing, go ahead. No, let Chris do a solo.
That's great. That's fabulous. You know something? Working with, first of all, I want to say, working with Sophia Loren, I forgot to ask you, tell me about working with that woman. Ooh.
Well, she's tall and lovely. I didn't have too many scenes with her.
No.
There was an irony in that film because I was offered 2 roles, the Cassandra Crossing. One was the one with Burt Lancaster that I did.
Right.
And because I thought, I also want to work with Burt Lancaster, one of my heroes. And the other one was the Martin Sheen role, which was sort of playing the guy running around with the dog after Ava Gardner. And I said, well, I don't want to play the guy with the dog. And it turned out to be, that was more of the film, actually, because we shot our sequence in about 3 weeks, and then they finished the film the next year. So I didn't really have any scenes with Sophia, but I've met her, I've been to her house, I know him.
Spaghetti westerns, John Phillip Law. I mean, hey, Clint Eastwood went to Europe, Rome, became a star, came back here, boom, Clint Eastwood. Spaghetti westerns, that's what you've been doing a lot.
No, not a lot. I did one that was the second to best grosser in Italy the year I did it, called Death Rides a Horse.
That's right.
Another one with Lee Van
That is
Cleef.
one of the biggest. You ever seen that one?
That's it was on TV a couple of weeks ago.
I cry when I see it.
That's a great film. That is a great film. The Italians.
Spend my time the Italian westerns are great.
How about the Italian women, John Phillip Law?
Ants and honey on
Yeah. About the Italian women. You find them exciting?
Well, listen, the women.
I mean, women. Look at Chris. I don't
This
know.
guy, he loves to get me into trouble. Women are exciting, period. You know, and it's you know, I think it depends on the you know, the season of their life, and you know, a little bit.
I see.
I just love these little moments.
Are you married, young man?
No, I'm
You're not
separated.
married. You're separated. You have children.
Yes, a gorgeous girl.
Now, what's
We
happening?
both have daughters.
You do, but
Yeah.
tell me about Bob.
Our lives just seem to
It's-
flow along in the same.
You're real buddies.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good.
Absolutely. We're like brothers.
How about
Well,
you?
we like the same stuff, camping and
That's good.
getting the
I
getting
see
out.
the singing. Good God, you look like you should be.
Sounded like a
You should be at the
campfire,
Palomino
Everly
Club.
Brothers
I
look
mean,
up.
Well, I've seen him perform at the
at the
Palomino.
Palomino.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I love country and western. I think it's fabulous. Tell me about your dad, Bob Crosby. What's happening with him nowadays?
Oh my God. We just did a video on him, 50 years of Bob Crosby and the Bobcats, of all of his jazz. He had all of his buddies from the band,
Right.
Billy Butterfield, Eddie Miller, Yank Lawson, Bobby Haggard. I mean, it's sensational stuff. He's a classic. He's a giant in his own right. He works. It's so funny, you know, because, well, you understand, you're a Virgo.
Well, let me interject something.
A Virgo?
Because Chris took me down to Disneyland to see his dad, where he usually opens the season down there with the band, and K-Star was there.
Love her.
And well, you love her. You got to fight me for her.
I love her.
I mean, when I think of all the, listening to those songs,
Wheels
I
of
grew up
Fortune.
with it. Yeah,
Oh,
go
she's
spinning
great. Oh,
around.
she's
God.
I like to
I
hear
just
this.
was like, it was for me. She was like, you know, someone. The kids today would after some rock and roll
How
star.
is it to Christmas, holidays, all the Crosbys? Are they all there?
Well, you have
And
to
how
buy a
was-
ticket to see the show.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of them.
I mean, what I'm saying basically is I'm in the middle of a project here about my Uncle Bing, and it's the Crosbys in search of Crosby in search of Crosbys. Everybody searches for their own identity, and I think at that point, why don't we keep a lot of this stuff a little bit secret?
Okay,
But there's
Chris.
some great stories, and
Okay. I would love to hear you sing a song.
Great.
Would you?
Great,
I'd love that.
sure.
Okay.
we're going to do that.
You gonna do that song? Good. You
Tell
can
her you
turn-
love her.
Oh,
It's
wonderful.
on the tape.
On the tape, right. Can you play it nice and loud on the tape?
Where you are is where you've been. What does it take to open your eyes? Tell her you love her. Tell her you love her. Let her know you're aware. Tell her you care. Tell her you love her. You can't buy her love with a fast lane of fame, shiny jewels and chemical highs. She's not one to play those games. That's what she hated about those other guys. Tell her you love her. Tell her you love her. Let her know you're aware. Tell her you care. Tell her you love her. Simple words, straight from the heart. Holding hands for years to come. Truths that touch right from the start. Now she'll love you more than anyone. Tell her you love her. Tell her you love her. And your child she will bear. Tell her you care. Tell her you love her. Tell her you love her. Tell her you love her.
Ah, Chris, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you very much. Chris, do you write all your songs?
Well, that song I wrote with a friend of mine. He's a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Stuart Lerner, and it's so funny because he has he does a lot of, he sees a lot of stars and stuff like that. He has a lot of clients there, but he feels that there's something that happens when a performer performs, when a singer sings, or a writer writes that can touch someone and reach someone emotionally, even stronger than even a psychiatrist can sometimes. And I'm sure most performers realize that they can bring tears to an audience and so forth. And he would rather be a songwriter than a psychiatrist. And I think that's a beautiful story.
That is lovely. I must tell you, I worked with the Everly brothers in Germany and also in France when the bases. I did the militaries, and I used to work with Phil and John. I was their MC, comedian, on the road. And every night I used to cry backstage to their songs. They're true American boys singers. They're just beautiful. And they're not rated, they're underrated guys, really, Chris.
Not in my book.
Not in my book either. Not in my book, but boy, they're real true American singers, those guys. And you just have that same quality about you just now.
Thank you.
That was lovely. That's a lovely song. Tell me something, John Phillip Law. Busy? What's the most embarrassing thing ever happened to John Phillip Law?
This is the kind of questions they always ask actors.
What's the most embarrassing thing ever happened to John Phillip Law?
Golly, I don't know what's the most embarrassing thing. I can't do that. I've embarrassed myself so many times in this life. I think. Oh, okay. Well, I suppose.
There must be somewhere in the world.
What do you want to hear about? Missed entrances and falling scenery and something from showbiz, or some dishy thing from my personal life.
No.
Like falling down at a party the other night.
Really? Not drinking.
He was just doing that Barbarella thing, just started flying.
Flying without wings.
Didn't work. The wings weren't there anymore.
What year was that filmed, Barbarella?
Well, Barbarella was 68.
68. That was a great movie. That was a very big success. Do you still see Jane Fonda?
Oh, I haven't seen her in a lot of years. I saw Peter a few months ago over in Rome. He was doing a picture. He'd just come back from South Africa where he's doing a film, and I was on my way to South Africa. And we've worked before. We did a film together called Open Season with William Holden and Cornelia Sharp and Richard Lynch some years back.
What a great actor.
Oh, he was great.
Did you know?
No, but
I knew him.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I love that film he did, The Earthling. Did you see that?
It's a great movie. Great.
Isn't it?
A very dear friend of mine directed that too, who's dead now, Peter
The
Collins.
woman in the film was the Earthling. What was it?
No, it was the little boy.
The little boy.
Was it Ricky Schroeder?
Ricky Schroeder.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. What's new and exciting besides your video coming up for Chris Crosby? I mean, there's got to be something exciting in your life right now, Chris.
I try to find something exciting every day.
Every day?
Yeah, day by day.
You live day by day?
I think you have to.
I see.
Keep the magic alive,
John? Looking back,
one step at a time.
Well, looking back over your accomplishments, Are you satisfied right now?
Yes, I've had a few goals in my life, and I don't think an actor's